picture, yes, I think she does know that the lion is here, or around here. I don't think that the lion knows that she's here, but I do think she would have known. Let's give her a bit of extra space here. There she is. She's looking for Thamba, her son. Oh, she nearly fell in a hole. But you can see how unfamiliar with this property she is at the moment. She's not taking the usual paths. No wonder I said it was like following Karula. It's her daughter. Of course it's like following Karula. And also explain why Hosanna suddenly got so big. It's because it's not Hosanna, it's an adult leopard. Really? Yes, I think she knows the lion is around. She would have heard him roaring, and she probably can smell him. Leopards are very good at avoiding lions, for the most part. It only very seldom happens that they're taken by surprise. So, that changes things. Yesterday, we had the story of Thandi killing the kudu. Our Trutan, you want to know if leopards bury their feces like cats? Not always. Occasionally. Particularly if they defecate near a kill. They, for some reason, decide now they need to hide the scent of their scat to deter scavengers, even though the smell of the kill should be perfectly sufficient. But otherwise, no, they're not as fastidious as cats are. Hello, big girl. Every time she stops, I stop as well, because I don't want to distract her from calling, and I don't want Thamba not to be able to hear her calling. See how cautious she is. She's not walking like she owns the place. This is not within her normal territory at all. But she's looking for her son. Now yesterday there was that kudu kill by Thandi. I can't believe I didn't recognize my favorite leopard straight away. I just didn't see her face properly. She killed a kudu, she brought her son Thamba, and then Hosanna and Shungile apparently showed up, although I'm now starting to doubt that, because I was told this was Hosanna that I was coming to, so, you know, some serious confusion. And then the lion stole her kill. Maybe they chased the cub away. Maritza, you want to know what's going to happen now with Shungile? I don't know. I think Thandi and Shadow are both going to push further into Karula's territory. I think Thandi, as the naturally bolder sister, is going to do so quicker, which is one of the reasons why I don't personally, whatever the reasons for Karula's absence, whatever they may be, and at this point, honestly, you can decide what you believe, because we don't know. But I don't support the theory that Karula left her piece of territory to Shungile, because Shungile is not ready to defend it, and Karula would know that. So there's no way on earth that she's disappeared now as she has, because she's leaving a piece of her territory to Shungile. Because Thandi will come straight in and take it, which is what she's doing. I don't know what will happen to Shungile, but don't panic, because just because Shungile might not have her mother's territory doesn't mean she won't establish herself somewhere. She's just got to stay out of the way of her big sister, or her big sisters, for a while. That's all she's got to do. And keep hunting for herself, keep looking after herself. She'll be okay. At the moment, she's not a threat to Thandi. I don't think Thandi would be terribly impressed to see her, but she's not a threat to Thandi. And the fact that she survived that whole saga yesterday suggests to me that Thandi's not going to go out of her way to attack Shungile. But Shungile may not be able to establish herself here, because this may become part of Thandi's territory. And until Shungile is big enough and confident enough... Hey, gorgeous. I'm so sorry. Keith, you wanted to know how I knew that scent marking wasn't a full territorial display. Well, if I'd looked properly, I would have known that it was a full territorial display, because initially I was working under the assumption it was a male. And if I'd looked properly underneath the tail, I would have seen that was very clearly not the case. I just thought it was cold this morning, once again. But that for a female was a full territorial display. A male would scrape his feet for it to be a full territorial marking for him. I think she's going to pop out again here. So let's just wait. Here she comes. There we go. Oh, she's going back south again. Where's your boy? I love this leopard. She's such a fantastic female. Tiny. At the same time, she's killed an adult female waterbuck, kudu, yesterday. Seen her with 3.
That's nice. Well, we're still looking around for our elusive lion. He's gone into an area where we're battling to find him, but James the Invincible is on his tracks, which means we have a good chance. But over there is a whole bunch of dwarf mongoose. So there's a whole bunch of them sunning themselves and getting nice and warm. The sun has definitely gotten a lot warmer in the last half an hour. It's definitely picked up in temperature. And so these guys, after a cold night, are now out and about, enjoying a bit of sunshine. And look how many there are. It's amazing how many are actually coming out of there. Hello, guys. So you'll find that they're going to start kind of coming out to start foraging now. So once they've warmed up a little bit, it's then going to be foraging time. And they've got to be one of the coolest little animals we have out here. They are obviously our most smallest carnivore that we have. Well, land-based carnivore, that is. And you'll find that they warm up and then it's busy out looking for insects and varying other types of food that they can get their hands on. And because there's so many of them, they'll even be able to overpower certain snakes, which they'll go after with relish. So they're quite a formidable force. Oh, see what I see, Craig? Now, both of us must be as blind as bats, because I'll show you now what I'm talking about. Let me just quickly move you slightly, Craig, because off to our left is possibly one of the largest creatures we have out here. So there we go, look at that, Craig. So both of us just drove right past that, and that is not exactly a small giraffe. That is a massive individual, and he's a really big bull. Now, I only noticed him because he actually moved and made a noise, but it just shows you how well they actually blend in. I suppose I was also a bit distracted by the mongoose on the mound, so I didn't actually look to the left, and then Craig was as well. But you can see it's stripping all the pods that are on that acacia at the moment. The knobthorn has got a few pods on it, and it's eating those with relish. Now, giraffe love acacia pods. They love to be able to feed off them. There's lots of nutrients, and they'll use that long tongue and those rubbery lips to pull those off. Now, the tree that they're feeding on at the moment is not a tree you want to spend too much time handling. They've got nasty hooked thorns on them, and it always amazes me that a giraffe is able to feed off them the way that they do. And they use that sort of long tongue, and then they just pull off all these pods and leaves without any sort of worry whatsoever. And you can actually see that sort of blue-black tongue coming out now. Now, the reason why it's that color is because it doesn't have any blood vessels close to the surface. So it's got these kind of growths that are on it, especially on the top side, that lack nerve endings and blood vessels. And so when they feed, they will not bleed because there's no blood vessels there. And the lack of nerve endings means it's not painful for them. And that's how they're able to feed off these sort of thorny trees that you see here. The other interesting thing about it is that these guys, when they feed off these acacias, the acacias actually respond back. Now, you would think a tree wouldn't be able to respond, but it does. What happens with acacias is that they'll start to produce massive amounts of tannins, which will then get into the leaves, and it's quite a quick process. As soon as the tree feels like it's under attack, it starts to produce these tannins, and the leaves then become bitter, and the giraffe will then leave that tree alone and walk on to the next one. But before it does that, the tree is actually secreting pheromones that will then be carried by the wind onto another acacia downwind from it, and that acacia will then start to produce tannins straight away, so that by the time the giraffe reaches it, it's already become distasteful, which is absolutely amazing if you think about it. It's basically trees are talking to one another and helping to defend themselves, which to me is pretty spectacular and amazing. There's also the giraffe has stopped feeding a little bit because you can see an impala on the bottom right there, so that's what it was busy watching for a little bit. There it is, through the gap. Animals are everywhere this morning. It's been a very productive morning so far. You can see the male impala that's just feeding. Now, when we had our male lion earlier, he stopped and looked in this direction into this section here, and that's probably what he actually spotted, was this big giraffe. We just didn't notice it at all. But very, very cool indeed. And you can see actually how they do blend in once they get into the shade. So, Alma, you're wondering what mascara the giraffe is wearing, or are they false lashes? Well, I'm not sure if it's a Revlon man or a Maybelline man. We'll have to maybe ask him. But it's quite amazing how long their eyelashes actually are. They do almost look false, and the reason why they need such long eyelashes is because when you're shoving your head into a thorn tree, there is lots of potential for thorns to go into the eyes, and so if they close their eyes, and those long eyelashes will then protect their eyes from any sort of thorns going in there. Also, it protects from dust that might blow into the eye of the giraffe. Remember, giraffe rely quite heavily on their eyesight. Being big, tall creatures, their biggest sort of asset in keeping them safe is their eyes. So they need them to be able to survive, and to make sure that they are looked after. Those eyelashes are very, very important indeed. But let me go forward a bit for you, Craig, so you can actually see his face, because where we are is not the most ideal spot. Now, I say it's a boy because of its ossicones on top of its head. Big, thick ossicones that are broad. And this guy is actually quite interesting. Craig pointed it out that he's got two different size ossicones. So one is thicker than the other, which is quite strange. It's not always the case that you'll see that. Normally they're quite uniform in terms of their thickness, but he's definitely got one thicker than the other. You see his one on the left side of his face, much thicker than the one on the right side. Now, I don't know if you guys can see, but just in front of those ossicones and above the eyes, there is a big bump that is formed there. Now, that is, on males, is very typical. So what happens with these bumps is you'll get a situation where there's a calcification of the skull, and as the male gets older, so more and more calcium deposits will take place on that forehead, and it will get bonier and bigger and thicker. And the reason for that is when they fight, it's going to cause more damage. And interestingly enough, if you take a giraffe at 7 years old, now that'll be almost fully grown, it'll be as tall as it can be at 7 years old, and then you take a male giraffe at 14, and if you take the two skulls from a 7-year-old male and a 14-year-old male, and you weigh them, even though they are fully grown animals and the skull sort of diameters are the same, the skull of a 14-year-old giraffe weighs double, just because of the amount of calcification that has taken place over those 7 years once it's become an adult. So it really is quite amazing how thick that calcification can get, and you can imagine how much damage it does when this giraffe swings its neck and hits its opponent. It must be very painful when there's all these kind of bony deposits on the actual face itself. You can hear a vehicle just came past, so that's why a giraffe was just stopping to listen and to look. But there we go, still carrying on feeding. Those leaves and seed pods must be so tasty. The other reason why giraffe feed off these is because of the nutrient factor. So when any plant that's got massive amounts of thorns generally has a high nutrient value, and so with giraffe, because they are not like elephants or zebras or hippos that can eat mass amounts and be bulk feeders, they don't really have the space for it because of their sort of long legs, long neck, and their big lungs and heart. It means there's very little space inside there for a big stomach like what an elephant would have, and so they have to be far more selective of what they feed on, and that's why they go after these very difficult to eat plants. Most other animals, or things like elephants, don't have to worry nearly as much. They can eat all kinds of other things because they don't require the same amount of nutrients. A giraffe, to power such a large body, needs to eat the most nutritious plants there are out here. So, Stacy, you're asking whether the ossicones prevent them being hit by branches when walking through certain areas. Well, I suppose it could help in a little bit, but not really. When a giraffe walks, generally its face is pointing forward, so the nose is going to get hit long before the ossicones will. But I suppose it can help in some ways. Generally, though, a giraffe will just avoid a tree altogether and walk around it. They've got pretty good eyesight, so they don't need to worry too much about walking into branches, and if they need to, they just duck down and go underneath it. So it's not really preventative for branches hitting them. It's more just a defensive thing and to establish dominance. Right, we're going to carry on because it seems our male lion has not walked this way, given that we have a very relaxed giraffe and impala. We're going to try and see if we can't find him again. I know that there's another man that's on the search, which is James, but he's gotten distracted by an insect.
I have indeed become distracted by an insect, and I don't actually know what it is. It is the most astonishing looking creature, and I wonder if it is a bug or a grasshopper or what, but it has the legs of what would seem to be a grasshopper, but I don't think it is a grasshopper. It's got very long antennae, and it seems to have a proboscis as well. No, it doesn't even have a proboscis. No, it does. Does it? I can't tell. It's minute. It's probably about 3 millimeters long. Let me just move around slightly. I don't think it's got a proboscis. No, it doesn't. Maybe it is a type of grasshopper of some sort. I don't know. But what an amazing creature. And I suppose this is its time to shine, as the summer starts to fade away. So the flowers start to die, and maybe creatures that didn't have the opportunity earlier on in the season are now starting to thrive for some reason. But because this is the second or third one of these things I've seen in the last few days, and Seb was saying he thought Tristan had one of them as well the other day. Isn't it amazing? And sitting naturally enough on top of Waltheria. Now this particular Waltheria plant has been decimated. It's been absolutely savaged by Acrea caterpillars. I think that's probably what's had a go at it. And what's really interesting, if we look down the stalk here, you can see that the leaves have been devoured, but the Acreas have left behind the structural material. You can see their frass. I don't know why it is that caterpillars get a special word for their dung, but that's what that black stuff is. That's the caterpillar dung. But you can see they've left behind the structural material of these plants. Their tiny little mouth parts have eaten away the soft, squidgy bits of the cells, and they've left behind the lignin and the cellulose. And it's really very clever. It means that they do not have to have a particularly complicated digestive system to eat the food that they want to. They don't eat from the edges of the leaves like your sort of quintessential picture of a caterpillar walking along the leaf blade, taking off pieces of leaf blade as it goes. They don't do that. They sit on the middle of the leaf, and they get into the middle of the cells, suck out the juices, and leave behind the cell walls and the structural material. And here is one of those caterpillars right now. This one seems to be trying to live on the grass, and I think it's going to die if it carries on like that. It is also probably going to die on account of the fact that it is, very late in the season to become a butterfly. There will be a few butterflies that survive throughout the winter, so maybe this will be one of them. One is tempted to take it off and put it onto a leaf that it can eat, but as always the case out here, the minute we start interfering with things, the minute things start to go awry, pretty much. Now, what we're doing, well, I'm sitting on the ground, obviously, you can see me doing that. Herbert is doing a zigzag walk through this block, back towards where we had those kudu alarm calling, and trying to find some kind of indication as to where this leopard has gone. So we had a track or two just down there, and Herbert is now doing a zigzag to see if he can't find where the tracks have gone. So we're going to continue to help him do that. Jamie has got not the little chief at all, of course, but the one who is loved.
The one who is loved and not the little chief, despite the mass confusion that abounded this morning. The one who is loved is really testing everyone's love. No, I'm joking. She's just testing my driving skills. We could lose her very shortly. She's going to go into some really horrible stuff. Basically where Tristan lost the lion. Just a little bit to the east of that. Standing by Lee. Lee, keep coming north. She's got to this drainage to the north of Twin Dams, the one near Elephant Carcass. I might lose her in here, so it might be worth you standing by on the northern side of this drainage line. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna lose her here. No, I'm not. I'm not going to lose her here. I'm going to be positive and I'm going to drive down there, depending on where she goes. That is the attitude we expect. I owe Thandi better that. Debbie, you want to know how do I recognize different leopards? Well, if I'd looked properly, I would have recognized her instantly. But again, I went off the assumption that what I'd been told was correct, and that was a fatal flaw, because it is quite, as soon as she looked at me, I knew it was Thandi. Scientific ways to look at the spot patterns of the leopard. I think this might be our last view of her for now. You look at the spot patterns, the whisker spot patterns, the top row on the right, the top row on the left, and you keep counting them. From there, you get a 2-3 or a 4-3 or a 3-3, and that is unique to the leopards in the area. It doesn't mean that two leopards can't have the same spot pattern. It just means that they are in this particular area. Say, for example, one leopard has a 3-3 spot pattern. You then know which individual it is. I prefer looking at the faces themselves, the structure of their faces. Okay, hold on, everybody. This could be very interesting. The structure of their faces and other identifying marks. Some people, for example, the most obvious one is the wow on Karula's forehead. The other good example is Tingana's necklace. Botswana has a three necklaces on his chest of spots. So it really depends on the individual. Please, please, please be there. There she is. There she is, everybody. Patiently to see which way she goes. Now, Leslie Haynes, can you please, actually everybody, if you could just hold off for 1 second, let me just try and get this poor woman in. She's desperately trying to get hold of me. Lee. Lee, I think I've got your audio. Are you driving north along Twin Dams Road? Keep coming, go through the drainage, and then take your first left. She's in the drainage now, but she's looking north. Sorry. Okay. So, we have a question about whether or not she would be scouting the area to check that it's safe before bringing Thamba. Yes, I think there's a little bit of a combination of both happening here. She was looking for Thamba earlier, now she's not. Now she's scent marking, and she's moving further and further and further into Karula's territory. Which way are you going to go? Yeah, Lee, keep no, doesn't want to work. My radio doesn't want to work. Okay, we've got to keep up with her. I think now she is scouting to see if it's safe, to see if this territory really is abandoned. Because she hasn't heard Karula call in a while. She hasn't seen her scent mark. No, that way's going to be better. Hold on, everybody. Okay. Watch out. We're in so much trouble. We're in so much trouble. See you. I still see you. No, don't go that way. Please don't go that way. Okay, we're going that way. There she is over there. Whew, whew. Whew. Sorry, just gave my breath back. Okay, I need to catch up with the poor lady who's trying to find the sighting who's just driven past. I'm going to send you over to James, who's enjoying his stroll, potentially more than I'm enjoying driving through here.
I am indeed enjoying my stroll. I come to you with the news, of course, that we have had no further lion tracks at all, which is very irritating. But it is so thick and long in here that I'm not really surprised. We're now going down. We've come back to the original area where we had the kudu alarm calling. You're looking at me, by the way, through the red oat grass of the Great Mara. Yes, that's what we will be looking at when we're over there. I'm not sure. I think they are having a few technical glitches that side, and that's why we haven't seen Brent for the last little while. We are heading now down east towards Twin Dams Road. Interestingly, Thandi is not far from us. She's probably about half a mile down that way. And I don't know where she's going. I think she's kind of walking up and down. But it is interesting, as Jamie started discussing whether or not she was in, or the fact that she seems to be in Karula's territory now, I was just saying to Seb, isn't it interesting how she's coming north? And Seb heard a leopard calling last night somewhere near where he lives, and he wondered if maybe it was her, or perhaps another female that is incurring on what is an increasingly empty leopard territory. I thought I heard something calling, but it's the ground hornbills. Yeah, it's a ground hornbill in the distance can sound like a lion. All right, so let's carry on down here. We're heading down towards Pangolin Track. Bertus, you're studying you're studying conservation ecology. I'd love to know where you're studying that. And you say, how on earth do I remember so many botanical names? Bertus, I'm going to give you a piece of advice now, and it's a good piece of advice, so heed it well, and I don't often give advice. My advice to you is that while your brain is still under the age of 30, get them drilled into your mind now, because I tell you what, when you're 40, learning new ones becomes more and more difficult. It is unbelievable. You learn them for a day and they go. So get them stuck in your mind now, and the only way I did it, Bertus, was just to keep repeating them and repeating them and repeating them and repeating them. I used to have, when I started guiding, I used to have a whole lot of trees, broken off pieces of withered branch that I had stuck on the wall, and I'd put a label underneath them, and I probably had 50 trees stuck on the wall above my bed. And of course, trees wither and die, and at the end of it they were totally indistinguishable from each other, but because I looked at them every single day, I managed to get most of the Latin names of the trees here stuck in my mind. But now, when I see a new tree, or Judy H. teaches me a new flower, I find it very difficult to remember the Latin names. But, you know, they do stick in there, and it's just through constant repetition. And, of course, seeing them all the time. It's much easier when you're actually seeing them on a daily basis. All right, we're going to head back across to Tristan. He hasn't found the lion yet, but he has found the medium-sized relative of the troglodytes that were calling in this block.
We have indeed, we found ourselves some Nyala. We're still looking for this lion, and it's interesting how everything is congregating in one place. We've had Nyala, kudu, lion, and now Thandi is joining the same area, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Maybe Thandi will take us to the male lion. Wouldn't that be something for the books? And hopefully Thandi doesn't actually get herself into trouble, but she is walking straight to where we had that male lion, or where we lost sighting of that male lion, so hopefully she stays clear of that. But these guys are my favorite antelope. I love Nyala. They got such amazing markings, those white stripes on them, and then the difference between the male and the female is really quite astounding. And look at how quickly they disappear. You see how that coloration works. We think it's quite bright and doesn't really work, but actually in these sort of shady thickets, those white stripes just break the outline up. And there you go, look at that. It just melts into the bush. Amazing, isn't it? Such good camouflage. Now, they are sneaking about in these thickets, and they must be careful, because if Thandi's around, she's not adverse to a little Nyala snack, and we know that she's pretty good at hunting quite large animals, and so maybe she's going to be going after some of these things. It is very interesting how deep she's coming in, and in all these female tracks that we keep seeing, maybe this is exactly who it is. It's been Thandi that's been walking around here. It's at least encouraging that it's a female leopard that we know, and that will be quite relaxed rather than a skittish female from northwards. But the fact that she is pushing in here means that she knows that there's been a void left here by Karula, and that there's no scent marking or vocalizing, and that she's now seeing an opportunity to try and start expanding her territory. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And like I say, I mean, it's sad that Karula's not around and that we haven't been seeing her, but it is just goes to show that it's prime real estate, and it's going to be a sort of takeover. Great places for her to stay. Lots of is now for leopard, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Thandi starts to shift more and more and more, given that she's not getting any pressure coming back from Karula in this area anymore. Now, I'm glad for Jamie as well. Now for Jamie line on coming out. So I think he's somewhere still inside there sleeping, and I'm sure if James and Herbie are inside, but I'm going to carry on. I want to go check up towards Gowrie Dam. I don't know if anybody's watching the dam cam and has maybe not seen any sign, because we know the lions like to head up towards that dam area and lie on the dam walls every now and then, so maybe he's just slipped past us and has gone up in that direction. So I think I'm going to head up that way and just have a look and see if he's not there. But otherwise, if he's not there, then I would imagine he's still somewhere close to where we last saw him, just having a nice nap. The problem in that sort of area is that the grass is quite long, and it's not easy to track in there at all. It's really, really tough. There's very few sort of bare patches where you can actually see footprints, so it's not going to be the easiest of tasks. But if anybody can do it, James and Herbie will be the ones, so hopefully they'll come right. But what an action-packed morning we've had. This from very few cats yesterday, well, for the last few days actually, to two different ones, lion and leopard, and both of them on Djuma, which is great news. And like I say, I highly doubt that both the male lion and the leopard will be off by this afternoon, so we've got lots to look forward to today, and hopefully it'll be a wonderful evening. And I'm looking forward to hearing that male lion bellowing his calls later in the evening, and hopefully it will be while we're with him tonight. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Lou Butterfrog, you're wondering if a maneless male lion is possible. Well, yes, it is. So you can find maneless males. There's many reports of them across the world, but it's generally in areas with very dense, very thick bush. And one place in particular where you do see them is in the Tsavo East National Park. Now, Tsavo East is down in the southeastern corner of Kenya, close to Mombasa area, and it has a very dense, thick, scrubby land towards the northern side of the park. And up there, because of how dense and thick it is, the male lions, even though they grow manes, it just gets constantly pulled at by varying trees and shrubs and other things, and so their manes tend to be almost non-existent. It almost looks like they're maneless, but they have unfortunately just been lost due to it being pulled out. And then over time, genetically, it just seems that they grow much smaller manes than anywhere else. So you do find it there. On the other side of it, you actually can get females with manes too. Now, I know that sounds really odd, but there's a female lion in Botswana. If you look at her, she has a mane the same size as that Birmingham we saw this morning. Full, big, grown mane, and she looks just like a male from far, but she's much smaller and obviously lacks the male genitalia. So it can work the opposite way as well, where females get manes too. And it's all genetic. It's recessive genes here and there that will cause a female to get a mane like that, and same with the males. When they start to lose their manes, well, not have manes, it's just a recessive gene that they do have. The other thing that I've noticed this morning is the amount of elephant tracks. Now, we haven't seen that many Ellies. We had the Ellies to start the show, but there are elephant tracks everywhere. It looks like they just walked this entire place last night. And everywhere has just been kind of obliterated by elephants, particularly on the western side of the reserve. It's a lot more damage from elephants that side than there is this side. Now, you may notice two people walking in the foreground there. That's Mama Z and Believe. They look after us and make sure that all of our things are looked after, and so they're just going to Inga's to go and fetch, I think, some of the washing from Jamie, Seb and myself. So we have to thank Mama Z later. But I just wanted to come up and check this way just in case this male has crept in this direction. They sometimes do come up this way, and maybe, just maybe, we'll find a footprint coming out. When I spoke to James just now, because I bumped into James, and they were saying that the lion possibly crossed on over onto Twin Dams, but I don't know. I think it's maybe sleeping somewhere inside there. But let's not hypothesize. Let's go across to the man himself and find out what he thinks.
Well, I'm not sure what I think, again, but what I do think about this morning is that this lion is a deeply irksome fellow, and Herbert, the face on him right now is a face of thunder. He's not very pleased that we have not found this lion, so we've let him off a little bit to go and sort of rectify the situation for himself, and we've come to a very restful pond here in the middle of the African wild. I'm standing in the shade of a jackalberry tree that has shaded this pan, in which there will be many buffalo, possibly rhino, numerous warthogs, and endless elephants as we go towards the dry season. None of them, as you can see, are here right now, unfortunately, but they will be in due course, and I think it's going to be quite a hot day. It'll probably push itself up to around about 27 degrees Celsius, 80 Fahrenheit or so, and I think we will definitely start to see buffalo here. We had a buffalo close by here yesterday, and I was very pleased not to find him here this morning. Now I'm going to walk slowly round this way. I heard a rustling in the bushes here, and then I saw a little water monitor emerge, a little one about sort of a foot long, and I'm going to walk through here. He's in here, I can hear him, and see if he doesn't scuttle into the water. And then Seb can film him doing his crocodilian type swim. But maybe he has gone already into the water. Beautiful dragonflies around here. There was a frog. And the call of the white-browed scrub robin not far away. Ow. That was very sore. That was also very sore. There are frogs all over here. Seb, do you want to wander around this way? We might be able to catch or at least see one of these frogs. I think it must have been a grass frog that went hopping into the, well, grass really. No, naturally enough, disappeared. Okay, oh, there. I can see where it went.
Yeah.
Did you see where it went?
Yes, over there.
In here?
No,
Or did you see one there?
One over there, but
Okay.
I don't have a visual now.
Let's try one more look. They're so well hidden, and frogs at this time of the year are quite unusual. There,
Oh, in the water.
in the water. Let's just keep looking. We might be lucky. It's amazing, you know, the noise that a frog makes. You'd imagine that they were easy to find. but they really are not. They should be quite slow today, because it has been quite chilly. Anyway, can't find him, but I have found a spider, which has now naturally also disappeared. Not our day, Seb. Okay, no, we're going to give up here. We're going to carry on our search for the lion. Tristan apparently has managed to find himself an avian pal.
Well, it's not an owl, but it is a bird. Now, I know a lot of you have your bird lists, and many of you will have this one on it. An avian pal, sorry, my fault. Yes, James, it is a pal. But like I was saying, a lot of you keep bird lists, and some of you may not be sure what exactly this is, and some of you will know. But this is not a lilac-breasted roller, it is a purple roller. And we can see it's got a sort of much more muted color than the other rollers have, and it's got those white streaks on the chest. So for those of you that haven't seen a purple roller, there we go. Now it gets its name because it has quite deep sort of purple markings on the wings itself when it flies. So I will show you those now in the book. And then it's got that sort of light purplish chest. This one is not the brightest that you get. You sometimes get ones with a little bit more bright coloration, but lots of white streaking that can be only a purple roller. So if I show you in the book itself, there we go, we've got all the beautiful rollers, and they really are a beautiful bunch. But this is our purple roller down here at the bottom. So you can see what I was talking about, where there's got these kind of purple sort of flanks on the wings and on the tail area, and then deep, deep blue wings that come down, and then they have this kind of purple that comes down on the breast area as well. So there we go, and heavily streaked, as we saw now. That's pretty easy to identify. So a very, very cool bird, and they'll be here all year round. They do sometimes migrate a little bit in some areas of South Africa, but generally here we'll find them pretty much all year round, and they'll spend a lot of time in open woodland. So you find them like on quarantine, where we get a lot of marula trees. They love to sit in marula trees, and so we'll see them a lot in that area. And in fact, I actually saw a pair of them yesterday, I think it was, on quarantine itself. So nice to see. It's now flown away, so we're going to carry on. It has gotten quite warm all of a sudden, Craig. I'm starting to get a little bit on the warm side, I think. Might be time to start ditching some layers. But still no sign of these lion, well, this lion. Yes, so Button's cockatoo wondering about...
Oh, that was a surprise. Hello, everybody. We're just walking along here to the pans. I'm sorry about that rather sudden cut to us. Obviously, there's some gremlins around at the moment. Now, I'm not going to look at you because I don't know quite where Herbie is. I can see his tracks on the road here. But we're coming towards a pan, and when the heat starts to build, then what you want to do is make sure that you are very much aware of potential buffalo lying in the pan. But I'm assuming Herberto would have warned us if such was the case. I'm just following his tracks at the moment. No tracks of this lion have come out in this block, which means he must still be inside there. It's deeply frustrating. I really thought we were going to have a male lion on foot today. I was so excited about it. And Herbert is looking more and more morose as the morning progresses. And we only have, I don't know, about 3/4 of an hour to find him. Right, there doesn't seem to be anything nasty in this pan, so we'll go and have a look if there's anything interesting in it. Here we are. Apparently there are no pictures on either of the other vehicles, I'm afraid, so we might be stuck with us. Herbert, let's see if he can. You see, he can't even smile anymore. There, he's managing to show you a smile, but he's deeply upset. Ako mangin chum. Tafamanjan. Okay. Yeah, we're going to do a circle of the block. Maybe he's going to continue down the road. We'll see if there's something interesting here. In amongst the water vegetation. What we do have is a track of a beef. There is the beef track. Do you see the beef track? It looks like a very large cow has come to have a drink here. Now, I have been really enjoying my new mammal app, of which I have spoken much of late, mainly because I have, it's a long time since I've read a proper textbook on the animals of this area, and although the writing is about as dry as drinking the Sahara Desert, it is full of very good information that is well researched. We've been telling you that a buffalo, of course, can get up to about 800 to 1,000 kilograms in some cases. It turns out that, yes, maybe once or twice in history, that the buffalo of this area, the ones that would have made a track like this, are much more close to 600 kilograms or so, which is about 1,400 pounds or so. So although they are very big, stand up. Come back. This way. This way. This way. Humakaini. Huh? Oh, wayichavisa ngovu. Herbert was moving. Herbert was moving sticks and logs off the road there. I thought there was a buffalo on final approach. Right, let's carry on. Can we have that question again, please? So 600 kilograms, 1,400 or so for pounds. Ooh. Right. Lauren, you're in Illinois and you're wondering why I think buffalo are so irritable. The same reason that any animal gets irritable. They are threatened. They feel threatened. They see us as predators. A buffalo in prehistory would have been very good forage for a human being. We would have hunted them hugely. They are hugely popular amongst lions. They'll be chased and eaten by hyenas, and so the major predators all like to eat buffalo. Coupled with that, of course, the bulls are tremendously vulnerable on their own. When they move away from the herd, they are on their own. They do not have the protection of the sight or the ears and the eyes of the rest of the herd, and so they are consequently feel more at risk than the other buffalo and than many of the other animals. And if you mix that with their ability to be big enough to defend themselves, as opposed to something like an impala, which can only run away, then you can see exactly why they would be that much more irritable. And the bigger the animal is, generally the more irritable it is beyond a certain point. So, I mean, if you take a black rhino, for example, which sits in around 100 or about 1,000 kilograms or so, if you find a black rhino, they are extremely irritable. They are known as the most irritable animals out here. But beyond that size, if you go to elephants, yes, they can be irritable, but they also show a tremendous calm around people that buffalo will never show, and that black rhino will probably never show unless they are raised in captivity. So beyond a certain size, they know that they're too big to be attacked, and so they don't get attacked as much as something the size of a buffalo. Below buffalo size, you'll find that they're not big enough to protect themselves. That's the case for some animals. I mean, if you're big, if you're the size of a kudu or a wildebeest, then you can protect yourself, but very, very difficult against something like a lion. And as we are seen as the apex predator out here, well, their response is just to run away. So I think buffalo sit quite neatly in that sweet spot between being big enough to defend themselves, but edible enough to be threatened by a large number of predators. Now, I've made that up completely on the fly, so it might be rubbish, but it makes a lot of sense to me. Very nice question. I enjoy those questions, especially when I can come up with some relatively feasible theory as to why they should be as they are. Herbert has stopped flinging logs into the bush, which is excellent. Violet, you want to know what the plan is if we do come across a buffalo? You've just witnessed it. It's to stand up, face the threat, assess immediately what he's going to do. If you don't see him straight away, you get away and move behind the bush, get into cover. If you do see him, you make sure that you know exactly what he's doing, and you make sure that he sees that you are moving away. If he stands up and just chases you, well, then you've got to get up or behind a tree or behind a rifle. And it's the latter that we want to avoid most of all. And that's why we are very careful, and that's why I was so tremendously careful walking up to that pan. Although I wasn't very worried because I knew that Herbert had been there. I didn't know that Herbert was going to be flinging things into the bush just to the other side of the pan, making us think that he was going to be carried forthwith into the realm of or onto the stage on the horns of a buffalo. Right, Jamie, I believe, has managed to find a bit of picture. I'm not sure if she's managed to find the leopard, however.
I haven't managed to find the leopard. We barely managed to find the road. Honestly, Ferg, have you ever driven off-road like that before?
Never. That was the best I've ever seen.
It was such a disaster. I cannot begin to tell you. I have never ever put myself in such a terrible position to try and get out of. And I couldn't go back the way I came. I kept trying to go forward in the hope that it would improve the situation. And it didn't. It just got worse. And all of the secret pathways that I used to know have been washed away by the rain or blocked by elephants. And it was just a disaster. And we got out, but I'm still not entirely sure how. Ow. Actually, every part of me hurts now. I'm all aware of where the branches whacked me. Whacked fur, whacked the camera, whacked the antenna, whacked poor Rusty to shreds. I didn't really mean to try and follow her that long. I just couldn't go backwards, and then I couldn't go forwards, and then I couldn't go anywhere. And I don't know where the leopard went after all of that. I'm guessing she's going back south towards Thamba. Hello! We managed to get out. We're a bit stuck. Thanks. I'm just going to check south again in case she comes back. Shame that he was trying to... Actually... Oh, they don't look like they're drinking coffee, otherwise I'll ask for some. It would be cheeky though, wouldn't it? I once got a muffin and a juice box that morning. Okay, we're going to search for Thamba.
Well, we're busy trying to figure out what spider we've got dashing across my dashboard, which is... seems like it does not want to be friends with us today. It's now going off the edge and gone. Oopsie. Sorry, guys. I can't see exactly what it is. It looks like a young jumping spider, but I could be wrong. And it was just running across the dashboard frantically, so we thought we'd try and show you quickly. Now, unfortunately, Jamie's in the same area that I was in earlier, where the gremlins seem to be in full force today, in those deep thickets, and it really isn't very pleasant inside there. So I do sympathize with Jamie when she was off-roading there. Not very fun at all. As I was saying earlier, the elephants have pushed over so many knob thorns there that it's kind of, you drive a meter and then you have to reverse and go another, and it just becomes quite complicated to actually maneuver through that section. So not very nice at all. And seems gremlins also hide there, so a place that should be best avoided. Hopefully Thandi and both Thandi and the Birmingham male come out of there for this afternoon, and we find them in better areas. And we'll be able to then view them without any gremlins. But otherwise, we're just taking a little bumble around. We had a female elephant and her calf, but she didn't seem very, very happy. She was only by herself, which is quite strange. It's very odd to find one sort of young female, and she was young. She was probably only her first calf, so I would have said she was about 14, 15 years old. And she had a calf with her, and they went running into the drainage line, and she didn't seem very, very happy at all. And other than that, it's been quite quiet. What we did see actually was quite nice when, unfortunately, we lost signal earlier, was a purple roller chasing a lilac-breasted roller, and you could actually see the two color differences. It really was quite beautiful. So Craig was thoroughly impressed because it's the first time he's seen a purple roller flying, and he thought that they were quite pretty, and that the contrast between the two of them was very nice indeed. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Craig. That's what counts, is that we make you happy. So I'm now on Vulture's Nest, just checking for an outside chance that that male lion, for some reason, ended up this side. I don't think it's the case, but you never know. There is very, 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 very fresh elephant dung here. So I wonder if there's not more elephants somewhere around this area. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if there were. Do you see them? Ah, there we go. Well done, Craig. And there they are, disappearing into the thicket. It's now getting to that time of the day where it's getting a bit warm, so you'll find that the Ellies are going to start finding some sort of shady area. And these elephants, I wouldn't be surprised, will be probably, I would say, 20 minutes is what I'm going to call. 20 minutes or 25 minutes, somewhere there, and they will be at Gowrie Dam for a drink. That's what I'm going to call. What do you think? Craig, how long? About there as well. You're gonna agree with me. Okay, Craig, let's see. We have how much left of the show? We have half an hour left, so we should be able to see if they do arrive within the next 20 to 25 minutes. But they are heading directly towards the dam itself. So I'm going to do a big loop round and then try to get there at 20 past and see if I'm right and if our elephants do come out at the dam, and hopefully put on a show like they did yesterday afternoon. I'm sure a lot of you that were watching the dam cam yesterday afternoon had a wonderful time, because the Ellies were going crazy there. They seemed like they were really enjoying themselves. Right, onward and forward, and we'll slowly do our loop round and see if we are right. And while we do that, I believe James is on top of a termite mound.
Yes, I'm on an enormous termite mound. It sits about maybe 2 feet off the ground. It's very high. But the termites are building here. And I think they are fungus. Well, I actually think they must be fungus-growing termites. But this mound is very much reminiscent of Odontotermes, which is a fungus grower, but one that doesn't really build mounds. And the extent of this one and the strange sort of arrangement of the chimneys makes me think that it is an unusually large Odontotermes mound. Now, hang on 1 second, Tristan. At least, Seb, take a very slow step backwards. Slowly back, and come around this way. My attention has been arrested by a hovering fly that has stopped hovering and stopped there. And you see it there. That has ceased its hovering, and we never get to see these things. And they are always the most wonderful colours. They look like boiled sweets. They come in yellows and reds and this lovely subtle apple lime colour of the swan. And I think they always look like you'd like to pop them into your mouth and swallow them. Right, well, while we enjoy the magnificence of this hovering fly, Jamie Patterson has managed to have some increased luck and has found the other side of Thandi's family.
Hello, beautiful boy. After all that, I understand everything. Everything makes so much more sense now. Why they called in a young male leopard, why they thought it was Hosanna. Of course, Thamba's been wandering around this area, and there he is, waiting patiently. He responded to his mom's calls. Oh, he's so gorgeous. He is such a beautiful leopard. He responded to his mom's calls, but she'd already left. And now he's sitting looking longingly off in the distance, off to where she walked. Earlier on, I was busy looking down at the tracks on the ground, going, there's Thandi's tracks, there's a male's tracks. And he walked on top of, he obviously smelt her where she'd walked, and he followed her tracks, and then he got to here where she was calling, which is exactly where we were with Thandi when we first started. And now he just looks sad, because Mom's gone, and now he just has to wait some more. The cub with the big ears and the big paws, although he's grown into them considerably since I first made that observation. I love his eyes, though. He really does have the most stunning eyes. Little thing, where's your mum? So, this must have been the most confusing leopard sighting for any of our new viewers. This must have been utterly bizarre, because first we were talking about Hosanna, then Thandi. Let's just keep it simple. The leopard you saw earlier was Thandi. This is her cub. He was born in late July or early August last year, and he is, I think, about July last year actually, and he's gorgeous. His name is Thamba. If you just wait, perfect, I'll move forward for you a little bit. No problem. What's there? He's looking not at us and not at the other vehicle, but in the distance, and I think he's looking for Mum. I'm just going to shift forward ever so slightly, Ferg. Oh, poor battered vehicle. Shame, Rusty. I really put you through hell today. Here we go. First time I ever saw this leopard was when he was racing away from that baboon troop that attacked him and his sibling. And unfortunately his sibling, not in that baboon attack, but his sibling didn't make it. He or she, I think it was a she actually, was killed by the sticks a couple of months ago, which is what happens with lions and leopard cubs. It's just, there's a certain inevitability to that. Oh, he's gorgeous. And Rebecca, good morning. You want to know if he is in the tree for protection until Thandi comes back? Could be. It could be that he feels safer up there. He could also be up the tree because it gives him a nice high vantage point so he can see his mum if she comes. And it might also just be a really comfortable spot where he can sleep safely. I've seen, if I'm completely honest, I've seen more leopards sleeping on the ground than I have seen leopards sleeping in trees, if I had to count up all my sightings. But especially on a warm morning, it's the perfect place to be. There's a bit of shade, there's a bit more of a breeze than there is on the ground. So it could be that he feels safer up there. It could just be that that's where he wanted to be while he waits for Mum. I love those feet. I'm sure many of you out there have had dogs from puppies, and you know what their paws are like. Thamba's paws have always been like that, absolutely massive. Satyajit, I hope I got your name right. You want to know what Thamba means? It basically means boulder or rock. It's one of the names that was put forward by the Chitwa guides, that because of course Thamba was denned under one of the lodge rooms. So it was very much within their rights to name him. And they put forward 3 suggestions. One was Thamba. I cannot remember the other 2 now. Thamba, there was one that meant sorrow or solitude or something like that. And we're not even going to think about Bigglesworth. Either way, Thamba was what was chosen for him, and I think it's a very appropriate name. And I actually think he's going to be huge, you know. I really do. I think he's going to be as big as his uncle, Hosanna, which is a strange sentence to say. It does get very confusing with leopard families, because Thamba's father is most likely also Hosanna's father. Thandi is Hosanna's older sister, making Hosanna Thamba's uncle. But it would also make him his half-brother, because they share the same father. Oh, it gets confusing. Let's just leave it at that, shall we? because we're not even going to go into the connection between Thandi, Karula, and Thandi and Shadow's father. Gets very confusing. Let's just look at the beautiful leopard, and he is beautiful. Alright, we've had a truly special morning. Tristan has had some luck as well from his side, and found you something large and grey.
Don't bother asking for a link. Well, unfortunately we had a herd of elephants, but they've all disappeared into the thicket, so we're going to carry on. Now, there was a nice group of them feeding under this massive torchwood, and they've seemed to have exhausted everything that they had, so it's now time to carry on into the thickets and find some more shady areas. It's quite amazing though, at one point we had all of them. Oh, there's another young male over here. What are you doing? You're bending down and pulling something up with your tusks. What is going on? Obviously found some sort of food source that's being a bit belligerent and doesn't want to be pulled up, so having to use the tusk to leverage it. It was quite an amazing situation we had just now. There was the whole herd was spread out under this tree, and all of a sudden the wind picked up a little bit, and they all just started communicating, and there were these low grumbles, and soon these ears were out, and the whole herd started walking together, and then another grumble came from the matriarch, and everyone just stopped at once and started to listen. It was quite an amazing thing to see how complex that communication must be, that they all knew straight away to stop, and every single one was alert and listening. Tails were erect, ears were out. It was just such an amazing scene to see. They then realized nothing was really happening, and they carried on. I wonder if maybe there wasn't a scent of that male lion drifting in the wind, because where we are now is pretty much straight to the east of where we last saw that male lion, so you never know. Maybe that was what was drifting in the wind and what caused them to stop and to listen. Hello, little boy. You've been left behind by your herd. The rest of them have disappeared. You're going to have to catch up a little bit. Not that he's in any way phased. The nice thing about being an elephant is that you can catch up quite quickly, and you normally can find your fellow herd members very, very easily. And look how he's smelling us. Hello. What's wrong? Was not sure about us. He'd rather go the safe way, which is behind the big trees, and then carry on and follow the herd that goes deeper into the thicket. Now, I know that this is almost impenetrable area because I tried the other day with elephants to get in here, and it's no ways. There's buffalo thorn trees everywhere. It's just very, very sticky inside there. Right, so we're going to try and carry on and see if I can't get around to the dam to measure my timing. And while we do that, Jamie is with the most beautiful leopard, Thamba.
I am, and he really is gorgeous, especially when he's beautifully illuminated like this, and those green eyes of his searching for mum. Look at those ears. You haven't fully grown into them yet, have you? Oh, he's very beautiful. Is that your mum coming back? He's seen something. I think Thandi's coming back to him. We'll see. We'll sit patiently and wait. He's seen something. Now, Mock CK, you want to know how do you then go about counting spot patterns with the 2, 4 and so on. Look at his whisker line. Alright, and start on the left-hand side on your screen, which is the right-hand side of his face. And you see those two spots sticking out of the top there, above the sort of the last line of the whiskers. I actually kind of need to do this on a picture. It's much easier to explain, but there's 2 little dots there. And then if he turns his face for us, you'll be able to count the ones on the other side. So it goes from right to left, and you count the number of spots on the top on the right, and then you count the number of spots on the top on the left. He's definitely seen something. And from there, you get whether he would be a 2-4 or a 4-4 or a whatever else he happens to be. I actually don't know what Thamba is. I've never looked. I must actually look properly. Now, of course, he's turned his head because I wanted to have a look at him. I thought he was a 2-4. So he's a 2-4 leopard. He's got 2 spots on the right and 4 spots on the left at the top of his whisker spots. I don't like, personally, I shouldn't actually tell you this because it's the proper way of doing things. It's the way everybody does things. I personally don't like using that method because sometimes you get the tiniest of little spots that people then say, oh, does that count, does it not? It just confuses people. Oh, big yawn, I'm sorry I'm boring you. I prefer just looking at identifiable markings on their faces or around their eyes or on their chests. But when situations get confusing, like the one that we have now with Thandi moving in, I guess it makes sense. Raven, you want to know how much he can eat in a day? Well, he'll eat roughly every 3 or so days. He probably weighs about... he's quite a hefty boy at this point. I would say 35, maybe even more actually. He might weigh more than his mum. And I would guess his mum weighs about 40 kilograms. So if he really had to stuff himself, I think he could easily eat around about 2 or 3 kilograms of meat in one sitting, possibly even more if he's feeling really hungry. And bear in mind, it's not just one sitting. When predators are feeding off a kill, they will eat and eat and eat. As soon as they've even vaguely got a little bit of space in their bellies, they'll fill it with more food. Because you never know when that meal might disappear. Mobile paddy? No, I don't think the ratio of male to female leopards is of a concern in this particular area. So we do have quite a high number of males. At least we've got quite a few young males. So let's say within Tingana's territory, let's say within our traverse area, we've got the 3 big males, Anderson, Tingana, Quarantine. We've got Hosana and we've got Thamba. And that's actually pretty, Mvula, Djuma. So we've got 7 males. 2 of them are coming of age and will disperse away from this area almost completely. And Tingana and Mvula are both not young leopards. They're not ancient, but they're not young either. So at some point in the next few years, they'll reach the end of their reign. And then you've got Shadow, Thandi, Shungile, Salheshe, Tiani, Inkanyeni. Who am I missing? Am I missing someone? Shaluva's no longer, but the younger Shaluva is still around. That's 7. No, I don't think it's too much of a concern. The ratio will sort itself out. It'll balance itself out. Sorry, my brain just switched off completely there for a second. No, I don't think it's too much of a bother. Look, it's certainly the case that Tingana doesn't have that many females in his territory that he can mate with at the moment. They've all got cubs. Shadow's got her cub. Thandi, Karula did when she was around here, wherever she may be now. I don't think it's too much of a concern. And leopards, when there's pressure, they'll disperse, even females. Females don't have to stay near their mothers. Shinvinzi didn't. Hey, he's up. He's looking really big. He's looking really, really big. He's looking almost as big as Hosana. They seem to go through growth spurts at different times, these leopards. Hosana went through a growth spurt very early. Thamba seems to be going through his now. And, well, little Vutomi, I left him off the list. He's still got a way to go. He's tiny still, and he's the eldest of the 3. Such a cautious walk. Why would you do that? Why would you give up your comfy spot for Going all the way up there. Ah, it's shadier, I suppose. Or maybe he just wanted to be higher to see further. Yeah, sorry, I can't believe I left for Tommy off the list of young males, but all three of them are going to disperse. Big yawn. Sorry? He's about 9 months old. Born July last year. I don't know which month of the year we're in. He must be older than that. He must be 10 months old now. August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Are we in May? Yeah, he's 10 months old now. Sure, that's terrifying. No wonder he looks so massive. Roshni, we're about 10 meters from the base of the tree that he's in, but he's now climbed closer to us and he's above us and it's sort of at an angle. He's about 10 meters away and 7 meters up. Fergus, do you have a focal distance on that camera?
No, I just have a zoom distance.
You just have a zoom distance. Okay. So we can't work out exactly. He's not far away from us. It's not the closest we've ever been. I find generally with Thandi and Thamba, both of them need a little bit of extra space, as opposed to Hosana and Shungile that are so comfortable with us that they'll come and lie right next to us. You're going to do yourself a mischief, mister. You saw how carefully he stepped along this branch, and Francis, watching in Israel, they do fall out of trees. Not often. Especially young leopards will lose their footing, especially young male leopards, because they go through that growth spurt, and like big dogs or big teenagers, they get a little bit clumsy when their limbs have grown faster than their brain can quite comprehend. They do occasionally fall out. For adults, the reason that they fall out most is when they're trying to get a kill into a tree, when they're trying to lift it up, and that's when they have the greatest chance of falling. But like all cats, that magical, mystical ability to twist around and land with their flexible spines, they can twist in midair and land on their feet. I mean, there was that incredible footage of Anderson falling out of a tree, and he fell far. Anderson is one of the big dominant male leopards that we ever so occasionally see. That's not a good view, mister. We much preferred the earlier one. Now he's looking south. I wish I knew the answer to where Thandi... I know where Thandi is. Well, I know roughly where she is. Where Hosana and Shungile were. Using that thick tail as a balancing method. Are you going to try and lie down here, or are you going to come back down? Violet, yes. Leopards do deal with hairballs in the same way domestic cats do. They do cough up hairballs. A lot of the time they will obviously spit it out as they're licking or cleaning themselves, or they're licking the carcass, but they do consume a lot of hair, and that does result in the odd hairball being brought up. We don't find them as much as we would expect to. and a lot of that fur passes through them and is defecated out. But that they're very similar to domestic cats in the way that they'll deal with it. They'll also, if they've got an upset stomach, they'll go and feed on grass. Alright, little Thamba has decided to have a nap. James, of course, does not have that luxury, and he continues to stride along.
I do not have a luxury of a nap, that's absolutely correct. What I've got is one of the last Tephrozias of the season. The last little flushes of pink here in the bush. And I think that is a Tephrosia species, if I'm not mistaken. If it would stop jumping around, I'm sure Seb would be very happy, wouldn't you, Seb? Beautiful little bit of pink. And we're doing one last foray through this block where we think the lion is. If he is not in this block, I will be surprised, but likewise, I will not. It won't be the first time that a lion has managed to get out of a block without anyone noticing that he's done so. So that's our last little Tephrosia, and then of course the last Vernonia of the season as well. Now, if we're very lucky and you come with me and you're very quiet, there's a termite mound just up ahead, which has got some dwarf mongoose on it. So let's pop along there and see what we can find on that mound. There we go. In fact, there's a mongoose standing up, looking at us, thinking to itself, what are those people doing at this time of the day? Everyone knows that it's now getting hot, it's time to head in. You got him there?
I was zooming on the tree and not on the mound.
You got the mound there?
Yeah.
There, we've got him. Chitty chatty Meg, you say, well, I'll show you my legs at the end of the show. I went silent for a little while there, wondering why on earth anyone would want to see my plover-like legs. And you say to see how many ticks there are on my legs. Mostly at this time of the year, Meg, there are actually very few ticks. And so I'm not worried about ticks at all. I've been relatively tick bite free of late. Let's go a little closer to this mound. That little mongoose is standing there having a wonderful look at us, thinking to himself, I saw a lion today, but you didn't. Nyeh, 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 nyeh. Isn't that great? And the morning has assumed its very typical this time of the morning feel. Battis is calling, one or two robins. Everything else has got rather calm and collected. Very sweet little Mongoose. And the mournful call, seemingly in tune with Herbert's general attitude at the moment after not finding the lion, of the emerald-spotted wood dove going do 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 do. Now Moxie K, you ask a very good question about why it is that animals should be more afraid of us in vehicles, at least on foot, than they should be of us in vehicles. And the answer to that is because vehicles, from an evolutionary point of view, are not a particularly familiar thing. Our upright posture as the pinnacle of primate predators out here, that's 3 P's in a row, it's quite good. Our upright posture indicates an evil. Wait 1 second. Our upright posture is a familiar. No, it's a stick. Is a familiar evolutionary response. They have a familiar evolutionary response to it. We have been hunting animals out here since our ancestors first stood on 2 legs. They've been tossing stones and then fashioning spears and making traps since our ancestors first stepped out of the trees onto the savannas of Africa, probably about 2.5, maybe, up to 3 million years ago. So because of that, we are very familiar as on foot as predators. But that is not the case in the vehicles. We don't look like predators in vehicles. We look like some strange kind of thing that they learn very quickly is not a threat to them. If, however, you go to an area where there is hunting, and they hunt from vehicles, which of course is a practice that belongs with slavery, as far as I'm concerned, you will find that animals will run away from people completely, absolutely, from vehicles. They will run away from vehicles because they learn very quickly that they're a threat. But they have an evolutionary response to our upright posture, whereas they have a very recent learned response to vehicles. I hope that explains it. There's a lovely little grasshopper here it is. You see it there? It's that gorgeous, I know this one quite well. I don't know its name though because I can't find it, but it's got that sort of burnished copper abdomen, black, there it is, it's still there, black tips to the knees. You see it there? It's over here. There it is. This is where my finger is. Oh, he's gone now. Anyway, let's carry on. Herbert's not too far ahead of us. I haven't heard him saying, "Hey, hey," which would indicate that he'd seen a lion. So we'll just keep strolling along here. I'm not too worried about it. I think Tristan has been correct in his prediction of where his elephants were going, so let's go and find out.
Well, I would love to claim it, James, but that would be a flat-out lie that this is the same elephant that we saw earlier that was coming towards the dam. This is that female and her young one that I was saying is a little bit nervous of what's going on. You can see they're quite fine feeding now, but if I had to start the car, you'll find that they get a little bit nervous. So I'm just sitting dead still, allowing them to kind of move away from me slowly. I don't want to startle them in any way, and it's such an odd thing to see such a young female like this all on her own with her calf. Now that would be her first calf that she ever had, and they're now going to go behind this tree. But like I said, I don't want to startle her. I just would rather she just kind of move off and we don't make any sort of nonsense for her. But it's quite interesting to watch the baby, because it's just her and the baby by themselves. The baby imitates everything that the mom is doing, and she keeps putting her trunk into the mother's mouth and sniffing around. It's really quite an odd sort of combination. But like I said, it could have been them, but it's not. It's not them that have come to the dam, although they will be at the dam at some stage today. They're just on the fringes. You can see the dam is just in front of us here, so they'll head there, I'm sure, at some stage today. But let's have a look if the elephants that we did say were going to come out are actually here. It would be quite nice if they did, but I don't hold out hope. Now that I've driven around and saw the direction that those elephants were heading, I highly doubt that they came this way, but you never know. Let's have a look and see. Craig, what do you think? Maybe. Okay, Craig. No, I think we're going to unfortunately be pipped by the elephants. I think they're only going to arrive later, not now. They were too busy feeding. That's the problem. They got waylaid in traffic and feeding. Nope, no elephants, so we were wrong. Sorry, guys. Well, we did find 2 elephants that we can claim anyway. Right, let's go back to Thamba and Jamie and see what he's doing. I'm sure he's probably having a fat nap in this lovely sunshine.
He's having a fat nap indeed. Tristan, you are spot on. He's enjoying the shade and keeping us in this baking hot sun. It's amazing how the temperatures spike up at this time of year, from very, very chilly in the mornings to really very warm by about 9:30. And I suspect this is what Thamba's going to do, unless Mum comes back with news of a kill or news of breakfast. I suspect this is where Thamba's going to be over the next few hours. I hope that's going to be the case. So hopefully for the sunset safari this afternoon, we'll be able to come and join him. Little one, Naira, you want to know if he's the average size for a 10-month-old leopard. I'm going to go and say he's slightly larger than average for a 10-month-old leopard, male leopard. Obviously the females are invariably smaller, but it's difficult to say. I mean, Vutomi was much, much, much tinier than him, but Hosana is a Well, actually, Hassan is about the same size now, to be completely honest with you. So I would say he is quite big. But it's difficult. I don't know exactly what the average would be for this area. And it's also, I mean, Karula produces big male leopards as sons. So has Thandi. So I would guess and say he's a little bit larger than average, but each leopard grows at their own different rate. And I'm not sure anybody's actually managed to plot one of those, you know, those growth charts that you have with children? I don't think anybody's actually managed to do that with leopards, where you can see if it's average or above average or below average. Either way, these live safaris give us an unprecedented insight into their lives. Short of being a guide out here, this is the best way to follow these wonderful creatures. And we've had a truly marvellous morning. Fergus, we didn't get you your wild dogs, but we did have 2 leopards and a hyena. I don't think we're going to be complaining about that at all. And on that note, it is the end of the sunrise safari. As I said, I really hope he sticks around for this afternoon sunset safari, especially because then we can show him to the kids that join us every afternoon for their school drive. It's always wonderful to show them something as special as a leopard, and I think it's a nice surprise for them. Right. Thank you, Fergus, for your wonderful camera work, for your ducking and diving, and for putting up with being smashed in the face by branches. Thank you to Chantal and to Jerry in the D2 position this morning, who kept us under control. Most importantly, the big thank you goes to you, and I apologize for thinking Thandi was Hosanna. Things are much easier to understand now. I will see you on the sunset safari, hopefully in this exact spot.